about the different categories of categorizing Asians, and there was a concern raised by the Pacific Islanders who wanted to maintain separation from the Asian, and I actually commented that it reminds me of some of the African diaspora and how people in different tribes feel, but I think we have a consensus on the need for the bill. There was one opposition, and the majority of the people who came were in strong support.
Mr. Chair, the need for the bill, I understand. Is this go for census data? I mean, where is this? When they break out the Pacific Islander, I understand that they want that, and they are different in nationalities. But is it for census data? I mean, what?
It doesn't completely change the census, but what we were looking at is some of the health agencies that do work. In the analysis, there's some description about, for example, collecting tissues for transplants, and you'd want to have that kind of information so that you were able to delineate that. It might be that a Vietnamese person might not have the same genetic makeup as, say, a Samoan. And so you'd want to be able to do that. Now the information is too aggregated, and sometimes you find that it's not quite the same match that you would want to have. Or there might have been other genetic markers that you needed to specify. So this was attempting to make sure that you weren't just saying Asian or Asian Pacific Islander in aggregate, and not taking into account that there were indeed unique genetic differences within the subgroup itself. Okay. Is there a motion moved by Senator Padilla? Open the roll.
Motion is due, pass, and re-refer to appropriations. Wright?
Aye.
Wright, aye. Anderson? Berryhill? Calderon? Aye. Calderon, aye. Cannella? Aye. Cannella, aye. Corbett? Corbett, aye. De Leon? De Leon, aye. Evans? Hernandez? Hernandez, aye. Padilla? Aye. Padilla, aye. Strickland? Aye. Strickland, aye. Wyland? Aye. Wyland, aye. Yee? Aye. Yee, aye.
That's 10-0. We'll hold that open. I want to, I've got a couple of authors here. I want to take one bill. Members, 2 weeks ago we heard a bill by Assemblywoman Ma. This is final item 6. We put the bill over 2 weeks ago. The concern was that as it was written, it didn't distinguish between a self-checkout and an online seller of alcohol. She has taken amendments to make clear that there is a distinction, so the bill specifically does not apply to online sellers of alcohol. It only deals with the self-checkout. A number of people I know raise concerns is that if you're shoplifting, this doesn't prevent shoplifting. Understand that, and there's still that concern. But specifically, the amendment that she took, we were going to do it for vote only, provides a distinction clear that this is not about online wine sales or online sales as are still legal and would not be classified as that. That was, the Assemblywoman did take those amendments in the bill, so I was prepared to support it with the amendments to make clear that we're not banning the California sale of online products, distinguishing that from an in-store thing. Is there a motion that we can move by Senator Corbett? Why don't we call the roll?
Motion is due, pass, and re-refer to appropriations. Wright?
Aye.
Wright, aye. Anderson? Berryhill? Calderon? Cannella? No. Cannella, no. Corbett? Aye. Corbett, aye. De Leon? Aye. De Leon, aye. Evans? Hernandez? Aye. Hernandez, aye. Padilla? Aye. Padilla, aye. Strickland? No. Strickland, no. Wyland? No. Wyland, no. Yee? Aye. Yee, aye.
6-3, it needs one. I see Senator Buchanan, excuse me, Assemblywoman Buchanan, you've been here for a while. Thank you for letting us get caught up.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members. I appreciate the opportunity to present Assembly Bill 324.
File item 13, members.
Right, in your committee today. AB 324 will help to alleviate traffic congestion and greenhouse gas emissions in California by requiring the Department of General Services to consider 3 additional factors when selecting the location of a new state building in excess of 10,000 square feet. The factors are the location of the community or population served, the residential location of the workforce to be housed with priority given to the highest reduction of miles traveled by the workforce, and the availability and proximity of reliable transit service. I've agreed to take the committee amendments, which would clarify that DGS consider where the workforce lives based on the information they have available to them through the state payroll database. The bill is supported by both business and labor groups and has no opposition. Here with me in support today is Jason Gonsalves, who's representing the city of Elk Grove.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman and members, Jason Gonsalves representing the City of Elk Grove. Very briefly, want to thank your staff for working with us on the bill. This bill is substantively identical to a bill that passed out of this committee 10-0, had a drafting error and was therefore subject to a veto. We're just simply trying to put some considerations on the books as DGS considers locations. Respectfully request your aye vote.
Okay, is there opposition?
Move the bill, Mr. Chair.
Seeing none, moved by Senator Corbett. Any questions, committee? Okay, open the roll.
Motion is due pass and re-refer to appropriations. Wright?
Aye.
Wright, aye. Anderson? Berryhill? Calderon? Aye. Calderon, aye. Canella? Aye. Canella, aye. Corbett? Aye. Corbett, aye. De Leon? Evans? Hernandez? Aye. Hernandez, aye. Padilla? Strickland? Wyland? Yee? Aye. Yee, aye.
6-0. It needs one. We'll hold the roll open.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chair.
Assemblywoman Mitchell. You've got two items. You want to take 727 first? Or
That will be fine, Senator. Thank you very much.
file item 24.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members. I'm presenting today and very pleased to do so AB 727, which would require the foods sold in vending machines, concessions, and cafeterias in state buildings meet minimal nutritional and sustainability standards. Specifically, foods in vending machines must meet 50% of federal nutritional standards. I want to be very clear about the motivation and why I'm carrying this bill. It's not to negatively impact the businesses of blind vendors. It's not to limit you as a state employee your right to free choice in vending machines. The motivation and point of this bill is to address a very critical public health issue confronting all of us. Obesity levels in California are staggering. In 2006, obesity, excess weight, and physical inactivity cost the state upwards of $41 billion in health care costs and lost productivity. Currently, CalPERS spends approximately $4 billion annually on health care costs. 10% of that cost is associated with obesity-related conditions, with cardiovascular disease and diabetes totaling $400 million. Again, the goal of AB 727 is to promote a healthier workforce by making healthy food options more accessible and affordable. Studies have shown that there is indeed a strong relationship between the physical and social environments at the workplace and the health behaviors of employees. Here with me today to discuss the merits of the bill are Ellen Wu, Executive Director of the California Pan-Ethnic Health Network, Darcel Lee, Executive Director of the California Black Health Network, Chad Silva, Statewide Policy Analyst for the Latino Coalition for a Healthy California, and they will specifically be providing testimony that will share with you the link between nutrition and obesity, an issue that was challenged in the committee analysis. Ms. Wu.
Witnesses in support?
Good morning, Chairman Wright, committee members. My name is Ellen Wu, and I'm the Executive Director of the California Pan-Ethnic Health Network, CPEN, and the sponsor of AB 727. I have a master's in public health, and I've worked at CPEN for the past 10 years to advocate for policies that will improve the health of communities of color. While all racial ethnic groups are experiencing an increase in obesity, communities of color have experienced the highest and most rapid increases. For example, American Indians, Alaska Natives experienced a 53% increase from 2001 to 2009. Obesity is the second leading cause of preventable deaths. In our obesogenic environment, a term that describes how our environment promotes increased food intake, unhealthy foods, and physical inactivity, is a major factor contributing to this epidemic. For example, the average beverage vending machine contains over 2 gallons of sugar. The treatment of obesity-related diseases is increasing healthcare costs and has a profound impact on workplace productivity. According to the Surgeon General, health problems related to obesity cause about 300,000 deaths and cost the country $117 billion in medical expenditures and lost productivity each year. Lost productivity and medical costs.
I'm going to ask you to speed up just a little. I've got 15 minutes and a group of bills yet to get out.
Let me get to the end.
Okay.
Schools and cities that have implemented similar policies show that a phase-in approach has limited the impact on sales, returning to pre-healthy food sales levels after about 6 months. According to the CDC, policy and environmental change initiatives that make healthy choices in nutrition and physical activity available, affordable, and easy will likely prove most effective in combating obesity. The tobacco control movement started with worksite wellness policies. We need to learn from our successes and create healthier workplaces. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions and also introduce the next speaker, Darcel Lee from California Black Health Network.
Chair. I'm Darcel Lee, Executive Director of the California Black Health Network. The California Black Health Network is a statewide organization established in 1978 that advocates for policies and programs that advance health and disease prevention for African Americans. In the report co-authored by us, Ethnic Health Assessment for African Americans in California, research is cited that shows that California's African Americans are less likely to live to an old age than whites. 5.3% of African Americans are 75 years of age or over, compared to 6.8% of whites. Major factors contributing to our population's shorter life expectancy are often related to disease: diabetes, hypertension, low birth weight, and other diseases. These diseases can often be linked to improper diet, obesity, and improper nutrition. It is also important to note that the public sector workers will be particularly impacted by this legislation. 1 in 5 African Americans holds a public sector job, and having access to healthier food choice, more nutritious food choices will make an immediate impact on their ability to work and live healthier, productive lives. We also support giving preference to foods that are grown, packaged, and produced in the state of California. Therefore, we do support AB 727, and we urge you to vote yes on this legislation.
We need to try to...
Good afternoon, committee members. Chad Silva, Latino Coalition for a Healthy California. I think that one of the big issues here is, I think it's as Henry Ford said, you can have any color you want as long as it's black. And I think that comes down, we'd like to use that to sort of describes the healthy food choices. That there's only a choice if there's a variety available. And so policies like this help to get the choice in front of the people who need to have the healthy choice, healthy food alternatives. And that's particularly important for people working in the public sector, because they do employ quite a high number of people of color. And diabetes and obesity is really affecting, I think, more than any other population, communities of color. So that's one reason we support this bill. Thank you.
Ryan Spencer with the California Medical Association, and I just want to touch on one thing which feels important as well, is nutrition isn't just focused on those who happen to be obese or are at risk of being obese. It's for everybody. I mean, numerous studies have shown that whole grains, nuts, and fruits contain antioxidants, flavonoids that help prevent against cancer and fight cancer. In fact, nuts themselves have unsaturated fatty acids which help lower your LDLs, or as we know as the bad cholesterol, which prevent heart disease. And for that reason, for many reasons stated before us, we're in support of the measure.
Okay. Is there opposition? I'm sorry. Witness.
Helen Roth Dowden from SEIU Local 1000. The state workers were in support, and also United Service Workers West, SEIU, also in support of this measure.
Okay.
Donna Seitz, representing the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors. We are in support of this bill for the reasons that have been stated and urge your aye vote. Thank you.
Okay. further witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition? Is there another witnesses support?
This is your opposition.
Okay.
Jeff Tom, representing the California Council of the Blind. I'll try to be brief in the interest of time, but I do need to explain our position. We vigorously opposed this bill in the Assembly. At that point in time, it had a 100% healthy food requirement. It was then amended to remove the 100% requirement, and we were willing to take a neutral position. We have a concern, however, because we've heard from a couple of sources that it is the intent of the proponents of the bill to come back as early as next year and reinstitute their effort to impose the 100% requirement. If we have assurances that this is not the case and they do not intend to come back in the next year or two, we can, albeit with reluctance, live with our neutral position. We don't want to be viewed as opposed to healthy foods, but there is no question that a requirement of this sort, if instituted in a way that would impose a large amount of increase of healthy foods, would have a devastating impact on the blind vendors, who are small businessmen and women of California. So unless we have assurances from the proponents, we would need to revise and take an opposed position. Thank you very much.
Mr. You posed a question. Why would this adverse a blind vendor versus another vendor?
Because blind Chair Wright, excuse me, sorry. Because blind vendors are the exclusive vendors who have the use of vending machines in state facilities.
They're the provider of the service.
Okay, I got that, but I mean, if you went from a Snickers to a granola, you'd still be in the vending business. Why would the change in what you sold adversely impact the provider?
Two reasons.
Okay.
The first reason is that many of the healthy food choices have very short or far shorter half-lives, okay, and therefore they must be thrown away more quickly. And second, the fact is that people want to buy non-healthy choices, especially adults. Now, with respect to children, their healthy choices are going to dramatically change. And over the course of years, I think you're going to find more people will want to buy healthy choices. But at this point in time, if they can't get that Snickers bar in the vending machine, they'll go off to the restaurant next door or wherever they can go to get something else.
So that I'm clear. So the concern is not because there is something unique to being blind, but it's a concern that since the vendors happen to be blind, that it might adversely impact the business of doing vending with the state.
That is correct.
Okay,
it would impact. The argument is it would impact their bottom line.
Okay. No, I just. When you said that, I'm thinking, okay, what is it about being blind that would make you different in the vending? Okay, I got it. I understand. I was just trying to make sure that I understood your point, sir. Other witnesses in opposition?
My name's Ron Long. I'm currently a blind vendor in the health service buildings at the East End project. I have 55 vending machines in my facility and Department of Education. At the time, we have 35% of healthy foods in our vending machine. And like Jeff said on the right of me, I'm struggling right now because we do throw more away of the healthy food items because they have shorter life period. And if we put others go 50% more, it's definitely going to put me out of business because I'm struggling at this time. But I would like to do what's possible, the right way of doing. And I would like to see us stay at 35%. At the present time, I have told my vending route girl, we are going to put a vending machine with 100% of healthy food to see where we would stand at that healthy food at 100%. I asked please at least we could leave it at 35% at the time because it's definitely going to hurt. We have 120 vendors in this area, and if they don't buy my Snicker, like Jeff said, I have a little convenience street across the street that actually they can get it 10 cents cheaper. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Jennifer Snyder on behalf of the California Automatic Vendors Council. We have supported legislation in the past. We did support the legislation that put into effect the 35% that's currently in place. It requires vending machines to stock 35% of their food under certain pretty strict nutritional guidelines. The association, its members are vendor companies throughout the state. They're small business owners. They support choice, healthy choices, and they supported the 35% and continue to do so. We also have a labeling requirement now that's going to be in place in the next year that provides consumers with the ability to know what they're buying. So if you don't have the actual label on the actual chips that you can see in the vending machine, you'll also see a list of those items and what their calorie content is. So we have choice right now. We have labeling requirements where people have informed choices. We don't think this bill is needed, at least the 50% requirement in the bill. We don't think it's needed. We think it's going to adversely impact our vendors. There is a provision in the bill which actually includes cafeterias and food menus. But that standard is going to be very different. And so for a vending machine to have a 50% or more requirement and have a cafeteria 2 feet away that's going to be able to stock that food with a different standard only adversely impacts the vending machine and really does nothing to help what we would want to solve is the obesity problem in California. Again, very much about choice, very much about educated choices. Don't think we need this bill. Think we're fine the way we are, and we would ask for you to oppose it. Thank you.
Senator Wright, committee members, John Hewitt on behalf of the Grocery Manufacturers Association. On behalf of the member companies, we are also opposed to this bill. I guess, simply put, we just have a slight difference of opinion on how to address the issue of obesity in front of us in the state of California. We believe that rather than limiting consumer choice, you go about it through consumer education. Our member companies have invested in just that consumer education initiative nationally. It's called front of pack labeling. It's explained more thoroughly in the comment letters submitted to the committee members. As Ms. Snyder said, we believe that the consumer education component actually goes a lot farther than limiting choice in terms of dealing with the obesity issue, and we would therefore ask for your opposition to this bill. Thank you.
Okay. Questions of the committee? Senator Hernandez, Senator Strickland.
You know, Assembly Member, I would agree that obesity rates are out of control, and I would especially agree that especially in communities of color, and obviously to get around that or to solve that, we need to make sure that we have healthier choices in a lot of the supermarkets. And obviously, Agreed. If you see in communities of color, we have very few of any supermarkets. We have a lot of liquor stores, etc. I do have some concerns, and I wasn't sure how I was going to vote. I was actually leaning towards it, but after listening to the opposition and what you're proposing, you have even more questions and more concerns because I don't really see how raising from 35% to 50% in a vending machine is really going to solve the obesity problems in communities of color, even though you're stating that a high percentage of African Americans work in state buildings. And I'm even starting to become more concerned about hearing some of the opposition. And how do you answer the first opponent stating that you might be coming back next year to raise it to 100%? Is there a commitment that you won't do that at all or not?
Well, I'm not quite sure who he's had the conversation with because he's never come to meet with me, so I'm not sure who shared that with him. At this point, I'm focusing on the bill in front of us. The initial language in the bill was 100%. It was amended down to 50%. I am kind of picking up the mantle, if you will, from Mr. Torlakson, who's pushed this issue and carried similar pieces of legislation for a number of years to get us to the 35%. I appreciate the fact that the local vendor here says he is now meeting the 35% requirement. Very few across the state are. And so this is incremental. It's not my expectation. I'm not that naive to think that if we change vending machines, we will solve the obesity crisis in California. But it's much like the culture shift and the public health crises that this body has addressed over the years. From tobacco, we did public health, public information campaigns. This body, over the years, has taken much more punitive steps to limit smoking and the public's exposure to tobacco. Alcohol consumption by pregnant women. This is a culture shift that we, I think, as a policy-setting body, have a responsibility to take incremental steps. With regard to the impact on the local vendors, studies have shown, and unfortunately our witness who testified on the Assembly side isn't here today because there is a obesity prevention conference taking place in LA County today, and she's there. And numerous studies have shown our experience in schools where we have done the culture shift and transitioned the contents of vending machines. It has taken time for the habits and the culture shift to take place. I'm clear that overnight we won't create statewide Snickers cessation. It's going to take time. And the real point around the vending machine versus cafeterias is recognizing that vending machines are accessible 24 hours. Having been a staff here in the building, particularly during this time, during budget times, when you're working 24 hours, the cafeteria is closed. The cafeteria has refrigeration and broader options. The vending machines are the only thing state workers have if they are working long shifts to get access to food.
I got another question over here.
Yes.
Senator Strickland.
Question to the vendors. What's your sales like between, say, Snickers and Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, Coke, versus some of these other nutritional values? I mean, I assume, and maybe I'm wrong, you have higher sales on one end versus the other.
Well, we actually have a vendor who's in the business with me here, so
Sure.
maybe he's best to answer
I would
it.
like that.
Like I said, I have 55 vending machines. My number one seller is M&M Peanuts. My number two sellers, Snickers, Reese Cups. We do sell granola, but it's far from none. It's probably ratio 24-1. I throw more granola bars away than I do a Snicker. I put them in every week, 2 times a week, and at expiration date, we throw them away. I tried to give them to the homeless, and they wouldn't even eat them.
So I kind of thought that was the answer. So what you're saying, sir, is if this bill is enacted, you would lose revenue into your business.
I lose much revenue by that.
Is there a provision? Is there a provision in this bill that backs the state to you if you lose the revenue on this?
No.
I didn't think so.
We have a food cost we have to meet.
So now we're in the position where we're mandating something that on the free market, and when people have a choice, it's not even in your top 24. Listen, as you stated here, that you can't even give this stuff away. Number two, I wanted to kind of know from the Assemblyman, where does this stop? I mean, we know, for example, certain cars are safer than others. Are we going to mandate that you can only drive certain cars? Because right now, many of the members here drive probably a less safe car if they got in an accident based on fuel efficiency. But are we going to, for the safer and greater good, going to say, no, I'm sorry, you can't drive a certain kind of car?
No, sir, I'm not. But when we talk about and have conversations, particularly in our budget negotiations that we're in the middle of, trying to control costs, and we talk about health care costs that Californians pay through their taxes, and when we can directly correlate a $4 billion annual CalPERS cost, 10% of that associated with obesity, I don't see the exact parallel to the cars we drive, but I do see a parallel to costs.
Let her finish.
Okay. Well, I understand, because I heard that testimony. But, as someone who's a kid that used to play outside all the time, play all the sports, there's a greater concern that children today are not outside enough, they're not playing enough. And are we going then to mandate from the state of California that every individual has to exercise 30 minutes a day? Because clearly
Mr. Strickland,
that's
I'm not
a bigger
going to carry
problem.
that bill. I am carrying AB 727,
right,
which attempts to address an issue that is within the purview of this body.
I understand it's in the purview, but
hold up. Time out. It's, in the interest of time, we're going to try to do a couple of things. Is there a motion on the bill moved by Senator Wiley?
He ain't moving it.
Okay.
I'm telling you right now, he ain't moving it.
But it's going to be very short.
Okay, well, wait a minute. I'm just, because we've got 10 other bills that I'm trying to do, so
Yes, Mr. Chair, I would encourage the author to work with the opposition on some of these issues, but I'd be glad to move the bill.
okay, there's a motion on the bill by Senator Corbett. You get the last word. I'm sorry.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members. I am glad to see there's such a dynamic interest in the levels of obesity and public investment in how we provide care to CalPERS retirees. Let me just say that in California, the healthy food procurement policies have been adopted by several large counties and municipalities across the state. I'm proud to say that my home county, Los Angeles County, South El Monte, and Chula Vista require 100% of food sold in vending machines on government property must meet minimum nutritional standards. Contra Costa and San Francisco counties require that 50% of the food offered meet standards. Again, I think that we are talking about an overall culture shift. It is not my expectation that this one act will solve the obesity crisis. I think it sends a positive message to those who are our state employees working in state-funded buildings, that we are trying to create every opportunity available to them to have healthier food choices in their place of employment. And with that, I ask for your aye vote.
Open the roll.
Motion is due pass and re-refer to the Committee on Health. Wright?
Aye.
Wright, aye. Anderson?
No.
Anderson, no. Berryhill? Calderon? Canella? No. Canella, no. Corbett? Aye. Corbett, aye. De Leon? Evans? Hernandez? Padilla? Strickland? No. Strickland, no. Wyland? No. Wyland, no. Yee? No. Yee, no.
It's 2 to 5. You need 7.
Serious odds, Mr. Chair. With that, I'll move on to presenting my second bill,
File item 25.
which hopefully will be received much more affirmatively by the committee. It's AB 735. As many of you know, foster youth suffer staggering rates of poverty and homelessness. This is attributable to both their lack of parental support growing up in the foster care system and being served from the state, and being severed from the state when they emancipate out of the system upon turning 18. AB 735 is a simple measure that gives priority application status to current or former foster youth who apply for student assistant and intern positions within state departments. These positions are a gateway to stable employment with good wages and benefits. Amendments taken on June 20th added Senator Walk as a co-author and added a definition of the word preference in order to better clarify the intent of the bill. Again, the goal is to create a hand up, if you will, to support foster youth who are emancipated out of the system and creating an opportunity for them to gain access to the state system. Children's Advocacy Institute and the California Youth Connection, the Youth Law Center, and others are in support of this common sense measure, and I ask for your aye vote. I've got witnesses to testify in support.
If you guys would be brief, we're just running out of time.
I'll move the bill, Mr. Chair.
We've got a motion. I'm going to hold the motion, and sir, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, members, Ed Howard with the Children's Advocacy Institute out of the University of San Diego School of Laws. The Assembly member said when the government moves to remove a child from the care of their parents, it incurs an enormous and entirely unique moral responsibility. This is quite literally the least we can do, is to make sure that these abused and neglected children, who are literally children of the state, enjoy the hands-up approach and have a whack at really being able to get a stable and productive life with our help, and I ask respectfully for aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Kathy Sunderling with the County Welfare Directors Association. We're also in support of the bill. It's bills like this will allow these children to gain important experience and also contacts that many of them will otherwise lack. And it will also help us to implement AB 12, last year's bill that will extend foster care beyond age 18 starting next year. Thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Michael Butler, California State PTA, urges your aye vote on this bill. Thank you.
We've got a motion. Questions from the committee? Seeing none, motion by Senator Corbett. Open the roll.
Motion is due pass and re-refer to appropriations. Wright?
Aye.
Wright, aye. Anderson? No. Anderson, no. Berryhill? Calderon? Canella? Corbett? Aye. Corbett, aye. De Leon? Evans? Hernandez? Aye. Hernandez, aye. Padilla? Strickland? No. Strickland, no. Wyland? Yee.
Thank you, sir.
3-2. We'll leave the roll open for that one as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Ms. Wagner, Mr. Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Senators. It is my privilege to present to you AB 338. Earlier,
file item 14.
Thank you. AB 338. Earlier this year, we heard calls from the governor, from President Pro Tem Steinberg, and from others, certainly a bipartisan call for some regulatory reform. This is a small item of regulatory reform that has come out of the Assembly and has come over to you. What AB 338 does is extend the operative date for a new regulation from 30 days after it's received by the Office of Administrative Law. In the bill, I think it is in 90 days. We've agreed to take amendments that bring it down to 60 days. We've also agreed to take amendments in the Senate that would provide certain regulations with exigent, for example, public safety considerations would be exempt. Otherwise, what we're doing is extending for an additional month the amount of time a regulation takes to take effect, and the purpose of doing so is to allow more review by the OAL, Office of Administrative Law, and in addition refers these regulations that have arguably exceeded, and it's a narrow scope of regulations, won't happen often, but those that arguably exceed the jurisdiction of the regulatory agency can come back to the legislature for the appropriate policy.
I'd like to move the bill.
Okay, we've got a motion from Senator Strickland. Opposition or support, opposition. Okay, you get the last words then.
Well, given the exigencies of time and whatnot, I will urge an aye vote, and thank you all.
Okay, open roll.
Motion is due pass and re-refer to the Committee on Environmental Quality. Wright?
Aye.
Wright, aye. Anderson? Aye. Anderson, aye. Berryhill? Calderon? Canella? Corbett? Corbett, no. De Leon? Evans? Hernandez? No. Hernandez, no. Padilla? Strickland? Aye. Strickland, aye. Wyland? Yee? No. Yee, no.
3-3 will leave the roll open.
Thank you, Senator.
Ms. Ma, I think she has 2. Okay. You have item 3. Your other item is on call. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I'm pleased to present AB 74, a bill which will create statewide standards to give law enforcement and medical personnel the tools to make raves in our state safer. Since 2002, okay? Okay, then I will cede my time. I was going to speak for 5 pages, but I will I will instead listen to my witnesses, and then I will close with whatever they have not touched upon. Thank you.
Witnesses in support.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I'm Christopher Boyd, representing the California Police Chiefs Association. As we know, a growing number of drug-related young adult and teen deaths, hospitalizations, and arrests have occurred as a result of late or all-night dance parties in California, many held on state-owned property. There are a number of recent examples of harm to youth at many of these events. Successful events often result from strong coordination between promoters and local law enforcement, fire, and emergency medical services. Law enforcement is in the business of helping plan events. It is in the public's interest to do so, and for safety. Our goal here is to reduce the harm to youth and these party goers by requiring some planning and coordination with public safety authorities. We're not trying in any way to interfere or regulate entertainment. We want people to have fun and have a good time, but we believe this bill will help us succeed in making sure that happens with minimal harm. Thank you.
Okay. Further witnesses in support.
Ryan Spencer with the California Medical Association, and we're in support of this measure. It's a common sense measure, provides safety measures for those that attend these large events. Thank you.
Okay, we've got a motion on the table. Something when we met, I told you the concerns I have is my football stadium. I mean, and they do a lot of this, but people will work around. We've got a motion from Senator Strickland. Open the roll. But I'm sorry, you get the last word.
Oh, no, I took that into consideration, and the bill just simply asked the Agriculture Association to consider the following. So, example, football games, if they don't consider that a risk, then the promoter does not have to prepare an event action plan.
Okay.
Motion is due pass and re-refer to the Committee on Public Safety. Right?
No.
Right, no. Anderson?
Aye.
Anderson, aye. Berryhill? Calderon? Canella? Corbett? Aye. Corbett, aye. De Leon? Evans? Hernandez? Aye. Hernandez, aye. Padilla? Strickland? Aye. Strickland, aye. Wyland? Yee? Aye. Yee, aye.
5-1 will leave the roll open.
Thank you.
Okay. Assemblymember Hall, or is it? File item 9.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. AB 241 is a simple bill. It was before this committee last year, and we were fortunate enough to be able to get this out of committee last year, and we are hopeful that we will have the same success this year. It extends the moratorium on the issuance of new gambling licenses for card rooms until January 2020. This extension will provide local governments with a reliable source of revenue necessary to plan for the future. And I would respectfully ask for your aye vote. We have witnesses here from the Joint Powers Authority of the card rooms in the Los Angeles County area. We have Mr. Dan Medina, council member from the city of Gardena, as well as Victor Farfan, the council member from Hawaiian Gardens, of which I'm quite sure you're familiar with.
I'd like to move the bill.
Thank you, sir.
Chair would be so.
We've got a motion. Why don't you guys identify yourselves again?
Thank you.
Council member, City of Hawaiian Gardens.
Dan Medina, City Councilman from the City of Gardena. Anthony Gonsalves. I ran for the City Council. I didn't make it, but I represent the City of Hawaiian Gardens and the City of Commerce. For support. Thank you.
Further witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition? Seeing none, we've got a motion. Assemblyman, you can close.
I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Open the roll.
Motion is due pass and re-refer to appropriations. Right?
No.
Right, no. Anderson? Anderson, aye. Berryhill? Calderon? Canella? Corbett? De Leon? Evans? Hernandez? Hernandez, aye. Padilla? Strickland? Strickland, aye. Wyland? Yee?
3-1 will leave the roll open.
Thank you. Are we in hearing, or is this subcommittee?
No, this is the whole thing.
Okay, because
it looks like
I noticed it was very
vacant.
Yeah,
but we established a quorum.
Okay.
So no, that was a real vote, but the roll is open.
Okay, thank you.
That was real. Do we have any other authors present?
Calderon has Condit here.
Ms. Condit for Mr. Condit. I'm sorry. What's the file item?
Mr. Chairman, Senators, thanks for allowing me to speak today.
File item 10.
Yes, sir. AB 252 corrects a minor drafting error contained in AB 2293, which was enacted in 2009. Under AB 2293, the list of licensees that were allowed to provide supplier-hosted entertainment inadvertently excluded a small number of distilled spirit manufacturers. AB 252 by Assemblyman Calderon will fix this, and we ask for an aye vote.
Mr. Chair, I'm willing to make a motion if you want to accept it.
We've got a motion if the witnesses would identify themselves, and we'll also have, are there witnesses in opposition to 252?
There's opposition, but they're not here.
Okay, opposition's not present. Witnesses, if you would identify yourselves.
Mr. Chairman and members, Gavin McHugh on behalf of the Distilled Spirits Council. We support the bill.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, members, John O'Malley on behalf of Young's Market Company, one of the largest wholesalers in the West, in support of the bill.
Okay, open the roll.
Motion is due, pass, and re-refer to appropriations. Wright?
Aye.
Wright, aye. Anderson? Aye. Anderson, aye. Berryhill? Calderon? Canella? Corbett? De Leon? Evans? Hernandez? Hernandez, aye. Padilla? Strickland? Aye. Strickland, aye. Wyland? Yee.
4-0. We'll leave the roll open. Do we have any other authors?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Present. Okay. Without any other authors, okay, we're going to start lifting calls. Okay, we're going to lift calls in just a moment. If you're on GO, we're going to start lifting calls. We went through a bunch of them. We've got several on call still. We're going to start closing the ones out. Why don't we open the roll again on the consent calendar? Call the absent members.
Consent calendar is currently 9-0. Absent members Anderson.
I'm sorry.
Consent calendar. Anderson, aye. Berryhill. Evans. Yee. 10-0.
10-0. We'll hold the roll open for another second. You're on. Those are consent calendar. Okay. Again, absent. I know the Republican caucuses. You guys are actually about to go in, or maybe. Or
Wyland just came back. How's it going?
We'll take a report.
I've been outside trying to bear broad lately.
Oh. Okay. Uh-oh. That might be more information than we need. Okay. Okay. Well, we may do that. We're not, at 12:30, we're going to turn into pumpkins here. Okay. Let's open up the roll. I think, again, on consent calendar, I think Mr. Yee was not on that. Senator, we'll open up the consent calendar one more time.
On the consent calendar, it's currently 10-0. Absent members Berryhill, Evans, Yee. Aye. Yee, aye. 11-0.
That bill is out. Let's open the roll.
We're going to keep everything open?
Well, no, we're going to get out of here at 12:30. We've got a bunch of stuff to do. Again, why don't we take file item number 2, Perez? I'm just going to go through. At about 12:30, we're going to adjourn the committee. Let's go through file item 2, Perez.
Current vote is 9-0. Absent members Anderson. Aye. Anderson, aye. Berryhill, Evans, Yee. Item 2.
Okay, we
Yee,
have
aye. It's 11-0.
We have another author. I believe you're presenting. Okay, that would be AB 767, file item 28.
That's correct. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am representing the Speaker today, presenting his bill. AB 767 establishes a state capital sustainability task force to advance the environmentally friendly practices here in our state capital. The task force will consist of representatives of the tenants of this building, the Assembly, the Senate, the Governor, and the Lieutenant Governor. The task force will develop and implement the State Capital Sustainability Initiative for the Capitol, the Legislative Office Building, and the Capitol Park in coordination with state agencies and the private sector. The task force will review our water and energy use, suggest conservation technologies, and explore opportunities for renewable energy and increasing the use of recycled content products. It will also provide an educational component for the estimated 800,000 visitors to the Capitol annually. Between the steps we've already taken and the steps we'll take under AB 767, we hope this Golden Dome will soon be one of the greenest places in California. It's time for us to walk our talk. I would sincerely ask for your aye vote on behalf of the Speaker.
Moved by Senator Hernandez. Is there opposition? Okay. Are the witnesses in support as well?
Okay. Remember, you're talking about the speaker, not about me.
Okay, we might be in reverse order. There are witnesses in support?
This is opposition.
Okay, I understand. Okay, we'll take witnesses in opposition.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Anthony Thomas, representing the California Forestry Association. Mr. Chairman, the Forestry Association doesn't necessarily have any problems with the policy portion of the bill. We would like to bring your attention to page 3, line 31 to 33, where it references exclusively LEED as a green building standard. In our humble view, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, we feel this is more exclusionary than inclusionary. LEED wood, unlike you may say steel or copper or whatever, does not have to be certified. Wood does. So by just having LEED as the sole point of reference of a certification is exclusionary from other green building standards. So we would ask that it be stricken or that other green building standards be included.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, Kathy Lynch, representing the American Forest and Paper Association, the American Wood Council, concur with my colleagues' comments. In addition, would just like to point out that California now has a green building code, which has been approved by the Building Standards Commission. We did have the opportunity to meet with the Speaker's office last week and did point out that while we all have hope that the Capitol restoration might take place very soon, if the time lapses, the possibility of if you left the LEED standard in, it's a private certification program. It will undergo many changes that there is no legislative oversight over, and it may not be actually the most green and energy efficient program. There's also been criticism of LEED that it's in conflict with some of the energy efficiency standards at the California Energy Commission. So we would just ask that you have Energy Star listed, which is appropriate because that's a federal program, that you strike LEED and just leave it open-ended. It doesn't mean that you couldn't use a LEED standard. It just means that you're not biased towards a LEED standard. And since the Department of General Services is going to be the primary agency working on this, I would hope that we would want the engineers and others to be looking broadly and looking towards the future at all the potential certification programs that are out there in current time rather than something that's been on the books that may not be keeping pace. Thank you.
Mark Palicki, Sierra Pacific Industries. Like my colleagues, we're not opposed to the bill. We just hope that the LEED provision gets struck. Essentially, from our perspective, it's biased against wood products, and of course, we produce wood products in this state, and so we would hope that you would consider taking that provision out. Thank you.
This raises a point. The bill says LEED or Energy Star. It doesn't say to the exclusion of Energy
But
Star.
they're different animals. Energy Star is more of an appliance type of a rating for those kinds of things. LEED is an entire structure
Is a
type
building
of a rating.
okay.
Thanks.
Okay.
I just have a quick question. Why can't this be done administratively?
Well, I think approval of all three governing entities in the building would provide a level of commitment and coordination that doesn't exist if it's just one house talking to the other and talking to the governor. I think it formalizes it.
Couldn't we move forward administratively first and then codify it if it proves to be a problem? I just have difficulty immediately going to codifying things or putting things into law that can be achieved administratively first. I like to think that people will want to get there on their own, and I'd like to give them the choice to do the right thing. And then if there's problems, it'll be a lot easier to make those tweaks. And I apologize for saying this to you because I know it's not your bill, but I'd like to make those tweaks administratively to make this thing work the best it can before we lock it down in law. Thank you.
Okay. Are there further questions from the committee? What's the pleasure of the committee? Moved by Senator Corbett. You get the last word.
Well, I believe the Speaker sees this as an opportunity for us to demonstrate a formal commitment and provide the leadership for the people of the state of California in greening public spaces and buildings and proving that we're walking our talk. So I would urge your aye vote.
Okay. Open roll.
The motion is due pass and re-refer to the Committee on Rules. Wright?
Aye.
Wright, aye. Anderson? No. Anderson, no. Berryhill? Calderon? Canella? Canella, no. Corbett? Corbett, I. De Leon? Evans? Hernandez? Hernandez, I. Padilla? Strickland? Strickland, no. Wyland? Yee? Yee, I. Wyland, no. It's 4-4.
4-4, we'll leave the roll open.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members.
Oh, Berry Hill, no.
4-5, we'll leave the roll open. I see Assemblywoman Huber. Members, we're going to file item 22.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. File item, well, AB 656, we'll just start with that. Needs a little context to kind of explain how we got here. Last term, we passed the Sunset Review Committee, the two bills creating the Sunset Review Committee. One was AB 1659, the other was AB 2103, both passed out of this committee, setting the structure for starting a review of our entire governmental structure of all the boards, commissions, agencies, departments, bureaus that we create to solve a problem, but we never get a chance to look back and say, did they actually solve the problem they were created to solve or not? This bill starts to fold entities into that review. Not that they will ultimately be sunsetted, but that they will be part of the process of reviewing our entire structure and asking the question of, are these agencies doing what they're supposed to be doing? Some controversial, some not controversial at all, and everybody agrees they're doing a good job. AB 656 brings into the Sunset Review process the Board of Pilot Commissioners for the Bays of San Francisco, San Pablo, and Suisun, the California Boating and Waterways Commission, the Credit Union Advisory Committee, the New Motor Vehicle Board, and the Uniform Custom Cost Accounting Commission. This will add to the list of those entities that are already being reviewed in 2013, the State Racetrack Leasing Commission, the Capital Area Committee, the Continuing Care Advisory Committee, California Recreational Trails Committee, and I just want to assure the committee the intention of setting these sunset dates is not a determination that any of these entities should be eliminated, but is about having that open, transparent checks and balances in government to ask the question of whether or not they should continue to exist or not. For a vast majority of these, the answer will be yes, but it is part of the process that we set up in the last legislative cycle, and I do ask for your aye vote.
Okay. Witnesses in support?
Mr. Chairman and members, Paul Diero representing Pacific Merchant Shipping Association. We're here in support.
Jennifer Wada here on behalf of the San Francisco Bar Pilots. We currently have a neutral position on the bill. Wanted to clarify that we don't support the elimination of the Board of Pilot Commissioners, but we thank the author for working with us, and as she stated, understand that this is merely to trigger sunset review, which we are fine with. So with that, we are neutral on the bill.
Okay. Is there opposition?
There is one opposition that we just received today.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Mr. Chair, Peter Welch with the California New Car Dealers Association, and yes, we did just come in today and we spoke with the author, and we do oppose the provision that would abolish the New Motor Vehicle Board that was just added into the bill late last week. We are sort of at a crossroads in our industry right now. We've been through a lot with the bankruptcies of General Motors and Chrysler. We've lost about 300 dealerships in the last 3 years. As you know, most of them have been in your communities. The New Motor Vehicle Board is crucial to overseeing the franchise system in this state, and we would respectfully request that it be removed from the bill at this time so that we're not one of the first in the queue, so to speak, to go through the review process.
Okay. Senator Strickland? I'm sorry, Senator Hernandez.
Thank you. So my understanding is that all these specific boards and or entities, you want to move them into the Joint Legislative Sunset Review Committee. Is that correct? To do a sunset review?
Correct.
And at that point, they have the authority or the ability to either sunset them or continue their existence.
Correct.
And of those specific boards that we're talking about, what is the process now? Who oversees them?
Now it would be the policy committees that currently have jurisdiction over them. Any member could run a bill to eliminate. Any chair of a policy committee that's within that jurisdiction could have an oversight hearing. It would be the existing legislative oversight that currently exists.
And so are any of these specific boards currently have any kind of sunset review process at all?
No.
Okay. And so is there any of these specific boards that have egregiously done anything wrong that would rise to the issue that, you know, that particular policy committee should have or has overlooked?
No, probably not. There is one issue that was with the Board of Pilot Commissioners where they hadn't been looked at all by anybody until the state auditor did a review in 2009. The state auditor found that there were a lot of issues that they weren't complying with, many cases of not complying with state law or not complying with their own rules. Okay. The board has been responsive to that. They've done a lot of reforms in response to having that oversight, but nobody had looked. So had you asked the question about that board in 2008, everybody would have said everything's hunky-dory because nobody had looked yet. So it is possible that there's issues, but there's no chasing after anybody. This isn't about going after with a vendetta any particular board or commission saying that it needs to be sunsetted. It's about there is a process that's now set up. People need to, we're going to go through the entire governmental structure, and it's a little nerve-wracking for some folks to be in the beginning of the line for that because they don't really know how the process is going to work, and I understand that, and I'm committed to working with the opposition. If there's a better time to do the review, then we can certainly go to a different date, but I'm not as receptive to the idea that we should never review a particular government agency, department, or bureau.
Okay, Senator Strickland.
Assemblywoman, I want to commend you on moving forward. I've been working on similar issues for a long period of time. The one caveat is I know, talking from some of the colleagues on this side of the aisle, if you make the commitment on the new motor vehicle board, you get a good outcome. If you didn't, you wouldn't. I could at least speak for a couple. You wouldn't get our votes. But if we have your commitment on that, I think you get our votes.
Yeah, absolutely.
To just take them out.
And that's
Will we have your commitment on that?
What I would like to work with them first is on if there's a different date. So we can set them for 2018. We can set them for 2020. I don't like as much the idea of saying you're never going to get reviewed, that you can be part of our government structure and we're never going to review you. Mm-hmm. I don't want to go that far, right, but I'm absolutely willing to work with them on setting a date that works so that the current environment doesn't influence the process.
I understand that, but obviously 2013 or 2020, whenever the year is, you could always come back later in another legislative session to do something like that. But in terms of this vehicle, would you be amenable, just counting votes, would you be amenable of taking them out? Because I would not support the bill if we did not do that.
Okay, so you don't want to review, just so I'm understanding, you don't want to review the new motor vehicle board ever?
Well, I think we've heard testimony that the new motor vehicle board has a lot of value to the car dealers, which is essential when we talk about, you know, cities relying on car sales and things like that. So when it comes to our economy, where we are today, whatever we can do to help something that drives especially local government funding, I think we could take a look at this down the line. But when we talk about this vehicle today, I think 95% of everything in here I support. In fact, the only people forward opposing this is this one item. So that's where I stand right now.
Okay, got that. Let me go to Senator De Leon.
I'm looking at your bill. Help me understand this. Isn't it backwards? Don't you have to review what you want to sunset before you sunset across the board?
It is. The process was set up in AB 1659 and AB 2103.
And
so the language there is not in this bill.
I know. Slow down for a second. Slow down. Who are those authors of those
that was
ABs?
Me.
Both those measures?
Yes.
Okay. So just walk me through this sense.
Okay. So both of those bills set out the process that if an agency has a date, then the committee is required to accept a report from that agency a year prior to their sunset, to take public testimony about that agency, their pros, their cons, what works, what doesn't work, if they're being underfunded because the state's not funding them. And then the committee issues a report and runs a bill that either extends them, consolidates them, reorganizes, gets them what they need to fix that problem, and then sets them for another review at some period out, maybe 12 years, 15 years out. So all that process is already codified.
By those two measures.
By those two measures. And the only thing that these bills do is they set the date to trigger that process in the jurisdiction of that committee to do that public testimony and issuing the report and receiving the report from the agency.
Okay. So the commission's sunset. So there's that deadline when they sunset. You will do the review, and then your committee will have the sole jurisdiction in either giving a green light or a red light to their existence, or how's that
No,
work?
it's not exclusive jurisdiction. So any member of the legislature could continue to run a bill to extend a sunset date if they didn't want the Sunset Review Committee to review it at that particular time. Any committee with jurisdiction can continue to act with its concurrent jurisdiction as opposed to exclusive jurisdiction. So any member of the legislature would still, under its prerogative, be able to change a sunset date or extend an agency, despite what was done with the Sunset Review Committee.
So what does your committee do then exactly after the review process?
If it is determined that the commission board agency should no longer exist, so we have some, for example, that are no longer meeting or that are just exist in statute only, then it will automatically be eliminated because it basically no longer exists, so it'll strike it out in statutory language. If the decision is that it needs to be extended, then it's just a bill to extend the sunset date, and any member of the legislature can do that. As with the frequent sunset dates that we have on various different programs, we run bills to extend those sunset dates. So it works the same way it normally would work. It's just an additional extensive review process where a report is generated from the legislature itself on a particular agency, department, and bureau.
And previous to that, there were no reporting. I'm going to make the assumption.
We had one just for B&P boards and commissions. Liz Figueroa was the chair. You may recall that from some time past. And it did issue some reports, but it got embroiled in political fights and ended up ceasing to exist. This is the replacement.
Okay. Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, if I could ask Jennifer Watt a question, because I know she represents the bar pilots of San Francisco, and I think it was last week or the week before that, we had a measure dealing with a formula and approval from the commission on their salaries. I know that ran into some obstacles in this committee, and my understanding, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Chair, it's on hold right now, that measure. One of my concerns is that we sunset a commission, that deals directly with those individuals, regardless of the outcome of that measure and whatever the outcome will be in the future. And you're neutral, or you're not opposing? Can you give us any insight?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Senator. We are putting that bill on hold for now. However, we do think the existence of the commission is extremely important. The state needs to be involved in the regulation and licensing of these state pilots because of the breadth of the jurisdiction, the difficulties of the waters, and the billions of cargoes that they shepherd in each day. That said, this bill, we understand, and as the author is committed, that it's merely to trigger their authority to review the commission. We don't have a problem with the commission being reviewed because, of course, we want a commission that's run efficiently and effectively, with the understanding that there is a sunset date of 2014, and we would have the opportunity to weigh in during the sunset review process on the merits of the commission and the necessity for state regulation of the San Francisco bar pilots. So for that reason, the reason that we're able to weigh in during the sunset review process, and that sunset does not trigger until 2014, that's the reason why we're neutral at this time. If it were a bill to come before you to eliminate the commission without the understanding that it was to trigger a review prior to the sunset, which we don't anticipate happening, we would vigorously oppose that bill.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me ask the author. So you're saying that there is a process established for the sunset review.
Yes.
And is this bill then to identify what are those committees that you're going to then review? Or do you already have a list?
No, this
under
is
the jurisdiction of the sunset review?
The jurisdiction of the Sunset Review Committee is broad. It's everyone. This is the list of who's in line and in what order.
So currently you have no list at all?
Currently, I have a list of the State Race Track License or Leasing Commission, the Capital Area Committee, the Continuing Care Advisory Committee, and the California Recreational Trails Committee. Those will all be reviewed for sunset in 2013. So their reports will be due this December. The committee will take public testimony and then issue its reports and take any further legislative action that needs to be taken. This bill that you have before you now is the following year's list of who's going to be reviewed for that year.
And then how did you select these entities?
Staff is currently compiling a list of all governmental entities. With the help, the Republican caucus has a list. We've gone through their list. We're going through all the list of all governmental entities, trying to pick ones that haven't been reviewed in some time, so that those will be some of the first ones, but not necessarily controversial ones. We wanted ones that are also good models. So the new car dealers, for example, were chosen because we actually expect them to be a model for future agencies. And we wanted to have that opportunity for the public to see sometimes the state does right when they create a different a governmental agency, and it is set up well and it works well. And we'd like to see some of those before we see all the ones that are broken, so that we have some model to base our successes and failures on. So I think it is unfortunate if I have to take some out now, because we won't be able to benefit from the positives of some of the good ones. But I think it's always important that we at least review every 20 years a particular governmental agency. And since we as the legislature hadn't done the Board of Pilot Commissioners, and the state auditor said there might be some issues, they got on the list.
The new motor vehicles board, they were added last Thursday, is that correct? In an amendment?
Yeah, actually, and we did not expect the opposition, and if it's required in order for this bill to move that we take them out, I am willing to do that. I just think it's unfortunate if we aren't able to benefit from some of the good ones because people don't want to have them reviewed. I understand people get nervous being the first in line because they don't really know what's coming, and which is why I've said I'm willing to move it out. But it would be really unfortunate if we don't use them as a model of a board that works well.
Well, my question isn't that. My question is, between now and the bill leaving the assembly floor, do you plan to amend more in? And if so, what are the other boards and commissions? Because the assembly voted on this without this board in there, correct?
Correct.
So I just want to, I don't want it to be a pig in a poke. I'd like to know what I'm voting on.
But where was it? For this committee, right? Yeah. No.
Because I think the assembly only voted on the pilots, and then as the bills progressed.
And some deletings, too, but for some that everybody pretty much agreed no longer exist. We also had some of those in the bill at the time. But no, there is no intention to add anybody new. So as we take people out of this, it just decreases the workload for the 2014 review cycle.
And because this is a new process, will they have ample time for 2014? Because they have to get a year in advance. So that puts them at, what, 2013? And what time of year would that be? Would it be the first of the year? Would it be in the middle of the year? Or
their report would be due in, I think if I'm doing the math correctly, they're reviewed in the year of 2013 for a 2014 sunset, which means the report would be due December of 2012. And then staff would work with them in advance of that in what to include in the report, which basically would say these are all the great, wonderful things that we do in the case of new car dealers. And they would then take public testimony, and we'd hear from the public on what works, what doesn't work in any of the agencies being reviewed. And it's only if there was no legislative action to extend a sunset date or to reorganize or reauthorize that something would be sunsetted. The sunset is not automatically, and I do think we may need to clean up this language in the bill, and I'm open to doing it, that a sunset date would not be automatic elimination unless you have gone through the review process. And if that's not clear in the language, I do want to make sure it is in the 1659 bill, but if it's not clear as we run these separate bills to have people get part of the process, that if you don't, you can't just be eliminated for failure to do anything, for having the legislature not act. It shouldn't be inaction that leads to elimination. It should be a public review and a consensus of the legislature that something no longer is needed. So I'm absolutely committed to changing the language there if we need to make people feel more comfortable with the process.
What would make me feel more comfortable is if you could roll it back 1 year so there's ample time for people, because this bill is changing as it's moving, it's morphing as it's moving along. And I think that, the last thing we need to do is create a ripple in the marketplace where people are feeling very nervous about meeting the deadlines.
Right.
While it seems like a lot of time, I'm not sure that it is a lot of time if you're the first person up. And if you could move it back a year, that would make it a lot easier for me to get there.
Here's what I will commit to doing with the chair's permission, is taking out the new motor vehicle board out of this bill as it moves from this committee. That will leave 4 entities that will still be part of that 2014 review process. There's 4 that are in the first class of the 2013 review, so it's the same size class, if you will, of entities being reviewed. And then we'll just run in the next bill where we're running the 2015 lineup. We can include them or not include them depending on how those discussions go with the board.
For me, if you moved it back a year, you don't have to change any of it. I just am worried that they don't have enough lead time going into it. It's not so much that you've added it, but this is because the process has changed along the way.
Right. And my hope was for entities to have at least a 3-year lead, but that's part of why the bill's being run right now in 2011, and they would know they've got till 2014, which is a significant lead time.
But 2014 is when they have, you can't really count that because they have to have the report by 2013.
2012.
2012, even more so.
December 2012, yeah.
So I'm just concerned because we have not done this before. No one's seen what the report's going to look like. There's going to be some complications. I would feel more comfortable voting for it if you moved it back. You may not need my vote, and you're welcome to do what you want. You are the author. But if you're interested in my vote, that's where I'm at. So thank you. And I like what you're doing. I think it's great work. And I hope to work with you on it.
Members, we're going to try to wrap this up. Senator Weiland.
Yeah, just briefly, Assemblymember, I believe strongly in auditing, and I think we need broad auditing of our programs, not just to slash things, but to find out what works, because there are things that are working. And I appreciate the concept behind this. The problem that I have has been presented. I really want to make sure you understand my concern. I don't want the new auto dealer board in this one or another one. There are so many others that are so important, but those sales and the taxes generated and the jobs connected with them are so crucial to the fiscal future of the state, and it's working. And I just note that over the years I've been here, there have been lots of legislation regulating what they do. They're pretty darn highly regulated. I just am concerned that either in this bill or in any, we look at them as opposed to other entities, and if there's a concern there, it can be done in separate legislation about some issue.
What's the pleasure of the committee? We've kind of talked this.
I just want to confirm with the Assembly member, you're willing to take that out?
Yes.
All right, then I move the bill.
Okay. The bill is moved as to be amended, and the amendment will be the deletion of. We'll take the amendment here to remove the new car dealers from the list to be reviewed. Motion by Senator Strickland.
This motion is only removing them. It's not delaying it by a year.
Negative.
Okay.
Open the roll.
So the motion is do pass as amended, and we refer to appropriations. Wright?
Aye.
Wright, aye. Anderson? No. Anderson, no. Berryhill? Berryhill, aye. Calderon? Canella? Corbett? De Leon? Evans? Hernandez? Padilla? Strickland? Aye. Strickland, aye. Weiland? Weiland, aye. Yee. It's
4 to 1. Needs 3 more.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Logan Fong. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Which item is this?
We're here on AB 949. AB 949 is sponsored by Butte County and the City of Chico. This bill would create greater control to local government. Like previous bills in this legislature, AB 951 by Dave Jones and SB 1159 by Dave Cox, this bill would help local law enforcement to enforce alcohol bans along a state river. The portion of the Sacramento River that this bill would affect is a hot spot in Chico for young adults and college students to hold massive parties for as many as 15,000 people on a single day to float down the river. Law enforcement has done its best to enforce existing law, but it can only because of the diligence of the emergency personnel and God's mercy that no one has died during one of these parties. This bill would allow locally elected boards of supervisors to prohibit the consumption of alcohol during one of these floating parties.
Senator Logue, let me, excuse me, okay, I know there's one concern. Senator Anderson,
I have just a quick question.
Go ahead. Why don't?
It's not the question I texted you. I just need to know, why can't they do it locally already?
Good question. Go ahead.
If I may, my name is Mike Maloney. I'm the Chief of Police in the City of Chico. The geographic area where this event occurs is configured in such a unique way that there are actually at least 12 different entities, several of them state entities, that have some degree of jurisdictional responsibility there. The other issue is, and probably the more significant issue, is that the current geographic boundaries of the river are not the exact geographic boundaries of the two adjoining counties that share jurisdiction for this. So the attempt here is to create a state statute that will be triggered by a local ordinance with the two adjoining counties, and together that will create a unified set of rules that all of those dozen or so different entities can apply. Right now, we're in this unique situation where it would be difficult to do that.
It does, and I'm willing to move the bill.
Okay, we've got a motion from Senator Strickland. Further comment? Gentlemen, if you guys would identify yourselves.
Larry Jones, Clayton County Sheriff.
Bob Evans, Chico City Council.
Roger Hart, Chico Chamber of Commerce.
And Michael Bryan, Lieutenant with the City of Chico Police Department.
We had a motion by Senator Strickland. I'm sorry.
Tressa Wallace with Shaw Yoder Antwi Strategic Local Government Services on behalf of the Butte County Board of Supervisors. Respectfully request dry vote.
Got you. Okay. Any further comments from Assemblyman? When you get the last word.
I want to thank you, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Open the roll.
Motion is due, passed, and re-refer to appropriations. Wright?
Aye.
Wright, aye. Anderson?
Aye.
Anderson, aye. Berryhill? Aye. Berryhill, aye. Calderon? Canella? Corbett? De Leon?
Aye.
De Leon, aye. Evans? Hernandez? Aye. Hernandez, aye. Padilla? Strickland?
Aye.
Strickland, aye. Wyland?
Aye.
Wyland, aye. Yee.
It's 7-0. That's enough to get out. We'll leave the roll open. Assemblyman Fong, thank you for waiting, sir. No, I know. We have two items, 1116, 1167.
Yes, I'll take on the 1116 first.
Okay, file item 36.
Okay, Mr. Chair and Senators, during a natural or man-made disaster, the dissemination of emergency warning information and evacuation is extremely vital. Unfortunately, the communication needs of Californians in limited English proficiency communities are not being met. AB 1116 will require the California Emergency Management Agency, CalEMA, to consider the safety needs of limited English-speaking communities during any disaster and emergency preparedness planning. It will require the Cal-EMA director to collaborate with local ethnic community-based organizations and ethnic media outlets to disseminate disaster preparedness and evacuation information. We have learned the importance of effective emergency preparedness communication through several major disasters in recent history. In 2007, a series of devastating wildfires struck California. This affected communities with populations of individuals with limited English proficiency. News reports brought to light the frustration and confusion during evacuations because of difficulties with communication. In addition, in November of 2010, the California State Auditor reported Cal-EMA failed to fulfill the Dimely Aleatory Bilingual Services Act, which is intended to provide effective communication between the state's residents, their state, county, and municipal governments. AB 1116 will rectify these problems and pave the way for the safety of all Californians.
Members, this is a matter we did hear last year. I believe it got vetoed last year. We have a motion from Senator Hernandez. It's not that you did anything wrong, sir. We're just trying to maximize the time.
I have just a quick question.
Yes, sir.
Why can't this be done administratively? I mean, they should be doing this stuff already.
Well, they should be, but they haven't. They failed the state auditor's Dimely Aleatory Bilingual Services Act, so they're not doing it.
I can respond to that. I'm Santosh Seeram with Asian Americans for Civil Rights and Equality, and what the Assembly member is referring to is that last year, ACRE procured an audit from the state auditors to have state agencies be audited for the Dimely Aleatory Bilingual Service Act, which has been California law since 1930, for the past 38 years. And what that law basically does is require state agencies to provide language access to individuals who are limited English proficient. Now, the state auditor's report came back that out of the 10 state agencies audited, Cal-EMA was the most out of compliant. The state auditor's report showed that they even stated it in the report, that they are so out of compliant that the state auditor can't even comment on their implementation of the Dimely Aleatory Bilingual Service Act because they failed to implement a requirement of the Act which requires a language assessment. And that language assessment would have provided the California State Legislature with key information, such as how many public contact positions they have at Cal-EMA, how many in those public contact positions are actually qualified bilingual employees, and which languages they speak. And it would also have provided the legislature to let them know what materials at Cal-EMA had been translated and into what languages. So that is the report and audit that the Assembly member is referring to. And I have to say, in light of the state auditor's report, this bill makes sense.
Okay, got you. She said that very well. You should take her with you places that you...
Oh, yeah. That's why she's here.
Okay. We've got a motion from Senator Hernandez. Again, we heard this bill last year. It was vetoed. I think it makes good sense. Someone, you get the last word.
I respectfully request an aye vote.
Call the roll.
Motion is due, pass, and re-refer to appropriations. Wright?
Aye.
Wright, aye. Anderson? Berryhill? Berryhill, aye. Calderon? Canella? Corbett? De Leon? De Leon, aye. Evans? Hernandez? Hernandez, aye. Padilla? Strickland? Wyland? Yee? Yee, aye.
5-0. We're going to hold the roll open. We need two more, Assemblyman. Do we have any other authors? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. We've got file item 37.
Thank you.
AB 1167.
Okay, Mr. Chair and Senators, California has the highest homeless population in the nation. On any given night, 360,000 men, women, families, veterans, and children are sleeping on our streets, in tents, or in temporary shelters. Furthermore, because of the economic crisis, the state has seen an increase in families with children living in our streets or in homeless shelters. Despite our large homeless population, California is one of the only large states that does not have an active interagency council on homelessness. AB 1167 will establish an interagency council on homelessness composed of public, private, and nonprofit representatives. A public-private partnership will provide an innovative perspective to address our state's homeless population. Many states and local governments, including local jurisdictions in California, have seen positive results by the establishment of similar types of councils. These cities and counties have adopted and implemented 10-year plans to end homelessness in their respective jurisdictions. Last year, California adopted a 10-year plan to end homelessness. But we need to push harder for the families, veterans, and youth that are sleeping on our streets. AB 1167 will allow California to have a coordinated response to end homelessness. This bill will provide a public and formal line of communication where information and ideas can be communicated between numerous stakeholders involved in addressing the homeless situation in the state. This council will act as a lead, not only coordinating and planning the state's response to homelessness, but coordinate additional funding the state can receive from the federal government for the prevention and reduction of homelessness.
Let me, if you would, let me get your witnesses, and I've got a motion ready to go by Senator Hernandez.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon. Sharon Report with the Corporation for Supportive Housing. 40 states, led by both Republican and Democratic administrations, have created interagencies councils on homelessness, realizing that homelessness affects multiple state systems: health care, veterans, corrections, child welfare, and others. In fact, over 10 state agencies in California have programs affecting homelessness, yet staff of these agencies rarely communicate. As a result,
I'm going to move to the next one.
Okay.
Go ahead, sir. Okay.
Zach Olmsted, Homeless Policy Director for Housing California. I would just add that the most compelling finding that other states have found is a large uptick in federal resources, so taxpayers' dollars coming back to the state, and many sources at the federal level require a coordinating body, which we do not have.
Good word. Yes, ma'am.
Rebecca Gonzalez, National Association of Social Workers, California Chapter and Support.
Tom Renfrey with the County Alcohol and Drug Program Administrators and Support.
Tressa Wallace with Shaw Yoder Antwi on behalf of the City of Santa Monica in support.
Okay. Any opposition? Opposition to 1167. We've got a motion by Senator Hernandez. Assemblyman, you get the last word.
Respectfully request an aye vote.
Motion is due pass and re-refer to the Committee on Rules. Wright?
Aye.
Wright, aye. Anderson?
No.
Anderson, no. Berryhill?
No.
Berryhill, no. Calderon? Canella? Corbett? De Leon? De Leon, aye. Evans? Hernandez? Hernandez, aye. Padilla? Strickland? Wyland? Yee? Yee, aye.
4-2, and we're going to put that on call, but we're going to be lifting calls.
Thank you.
Members, if you're in the building, we're going to start lifting calls. Again, the Committee on GO, we're going to start lifting calls. We're going to do that in about a couple of minutes here. Why don't we start with the consent calendar, open the roll on the consent calendar. Call the absent members.
Current vote is 11-0 on the consent calendar. Absent members: Berryhill. Berryhill, aye. Evans. Aye. Evans, aye. That's 13-0.
That's out. Open the roll on file item number 2, AB 29 Perez.
Current vote is 11-0. Absent members: Berryhill. Evans. Aye. Evans, aye. Berryhill, aye. That's 13-0.
That's out. Open the bill on. Oh, okay. Open the bill on file item 3, Ma.
Current vote is 5-1. Chair voting no. Vice Chair voting aye. Absent members: Berryhill. Calderon. Sorry. Calderon, aye. Canella. De Leon. De Leon, aye. Evans. Evans, aye. Padilla. Wyland. Wyland, aye. 9-1.
9-1. That bill is out. Open up on number 4, Laura.
Current vote is 7-0. Absent members: Anderson. Calderon. Aye. Calderon, aye. Evans. Aye. Evans, aye. Hernandez. Hernandez, aye. Padilla. Yee. Aye. Yee, aye.
Anderson, aye.
Anderson, aye. That's 12-0.
That bill is out. Ing. File item 5, 172.
Current vote is 6-2. Absent members Anderson, Berryhill, Evans, Evans, I, Wyland, Yee, Wyland, I, Yee, Yee, I, Berryhill, no. Anderson, no. It's 9-4.
9-4, that bill is out. Number 6, Ma.
Current vote is 6-3. Absent members Anderson, Berryhill, Calderon, Evans, Evans, I, 7-3.
7-3, that,
Oh,
Number 6?
yes.
yes.
I'm a no.
Anderson, no. 7-4.
7-4, that bill is out. Open the roll on file item 7.
Current vote is 7-0. Absent members Anderson, Berryhill, Anderson, no. Berryhill, Canella, Evans, Evans, I, Padilla, Yee, Yee, I, 9-1.
9-1, that bill is out. Open the roll, file item 9.
File item 9, current vote is 3-1. Chair is a no, vice chair is an aye. Absent members Berryhill, Berryhill, I, Calderon, Calderon, I, Canella, Canella, I, Corbett, De Leon, De Leon, I, Evans, Evans, I, Padilla, Yee, Yee, I, 9-1. Wyland, I, yeah. Did you?
9 to 9.
Yee, I, sorry.
9-1, that bill
10
is
to 1, sorry.
10-1, that bill is out. File item 10, Calderon.
Current vote is 4-0. Absent members Berryhill, Berryhill, I, Calderon, Calderon, I, Canella, Canella, I, Corbett, Corbett, I, De Leon, De Leon, I, Evans, Evans, I, Padilla, Wyland, Wyland, I, Yee, Yee, I. That's 12-0.
That bill is out. File item 13.
Current vote is 6-0. Absent members Anderson, Anderson, no. Berryhill, De Leon, De Leon, I, Evans, Evans, I, Padilla, Strickland, Wyland, Wyland, I, 9-1.
9-1, that bill is out. Item 14, Mr. Wagner.
Current vote is 3-3. Absent members Berryhill, Calderon, Canella, Canella, I, Berryhill, I, De Leon, Evans, Evans, no. Padilla, Wyland, Wyland, I. 6-4. Calderon, I. 7-4.
That bill is out. Open the roll. We'll go to file item 22.
17,
I'm sorry, 17. I'm sorry.
Current vote is 7-0. Absent members Calderon, Calderon, I. Canella, Canella, I. Corbett, Corbett, I. Evans, Evans, I. Padilla, Yee, Yee, I. That's 12-0.
12-0, that bill is out. Now we'll go to 21.
Current vote is 9-0. Absent members Anderson, Anderson, I. Berryhill, Berryhill, I. Evans. Item 21.
That was on consent.
Nothing. Yee.
Yee, aye.
Yee.
No, Yee, no.
Oh. On 21. Yee, no. 11-1.
Okay. File item 22.
Current vote is 4-1. Absent members Calderon, Canella, Corbett, De Leon, Evans. Item 22.
22.
Calderon,
It's
I.
about the bar pilots and the
Evans.
Sunset Review Board.
Evans,
But let
aye.
me be clear that this is as amended, and let me make clear, the amendment that she took deleted the New Car Dealers Association. So it's the same bill that you saw minus the New Car Dealers Association that That board is not a part of the bill, so it will be amended in this committee before it goes to approves.
Recall
Yes.
absent members Canella,
Yes.
Corbett.
Yeah, so we're clear. In the discussion, the author took an amendment to delete the new car board, so they're not a part of the bill. Everything else in the bill is as it came from the assembly. So that addition that was done here was taken out. But the bar pilots are still in. But
no, that's a whole different bill.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
That's a whole different bill.
Okay.
Different bill.
Okay.
So sorry, to continue with absent members, Corbett, De Leon, Hernandez, Padilla. Item 22.
Does she have two?
Yee.
No.
Yee, no. Padilla, aye. 7-2. Corbett, aye. 8-2. Padilla, aye to no. It is 7-2. 7-3. I'm sorry.
Gotcha.
Yeah, 7-3.
7-3. That bill is out. Let's go Mitchell, file item 24.
Current vote is 2-5. Absent members Berryhill. Berryhill, no. Calderon. Item 24. Calderon. De Leon.
Aye.
De Leon, aye. Evans.
Aye.
Evans, aye. Hernandez. Padilla.
Aye.
Padilla, aye.
No to aye.
Yee, no to aye. That gives it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-5. Calderon, aye. 7-5.
That bill is out. Item 25.
Current vote is 3-2. Absent members Berryhill. Berryhill, no. Calderon. Canella.
Aye.
Canella, aye. De Leon. Evans.
Aye.
Evans, aye. Padilla.
Aye.
Padilla, aye. Wyland. Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. Calderon, aye. Yee, aye. 1, 2.
This one was the preference for foster kids.
8-3.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Wyland, aye. 9-3.
De Leon, aye.
De Leon, aye. 10-3.
Okay, we'll go to 26 Bloomfield.
Current vote
go
is
ahead.
6-3. Absent members Anderson.
Let me do something again. This bill, members, in the discussion, we need to make an amendment so that the State Personnel Board's review process is moved up so that we don't issue contracts that potentially are subsequently rescinded, placing the state in a potential liability. We didn't have the amendment drafted, but the author is going to work at adjusting the order of the contract rescission. That's what the commitment we had. Doesn't change the scope of the bill. They can still do that, but we didn't have the language, but it just came up in the discussion.
Absent members Anderson.
No.
Anderson, no. Berryhill. No. Berryhill, no. Evans.
Aye.
Evans, aye. Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. 8-5.
8-5. That bill is out. We'll go to item 28, Perez. John A.
Current vote is 4-5. Absent members Calderon.
Aye.
Calderon, aye. De Leon.
Aye.
De Leon, aye. Evans.
Aye.
Evans, aye. Padilla.
Aye.
Padilla, aye. It's 8-5.
That bill is out. We will go to the Infrastructure Bank, AB 893, Manuel Perez.
Current vote is 9-0. Absent members Anderson.
Aye.
Anderson, aye. Berryhill.
Aye.
Berryhill, aye. Evans.
Aye.
Evans, aye. Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. 13-0.
That was out. Go to Manuel Perez 894. There was a concern raised here by some about the preference given, not a ironclad restriction, but a preference to agencies or companies that have a project labor agreement or a union contract in place. It's a preference. It's not a preclusion. The chair was voting aye.
Current vote is 9-0. Absent members Anderson.
No.
Anderson, no. Berryhill.
Aye.
Berryhill, aye. Evans.
Aye.
Evans, aye. Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. 12-1.
12-1, that bill is out. We'll go to Ng collection of demographic data.
Item 34, current vote is 10-0. Absent members Anderson? No. Anderson, no. Berryhill? No. Berryhill, no. Evans? Aye. Evans, aye. That's 11-2.
That's out. We'll go to the State Auditor. Laura, file item 35.
Current vote is 7-2. Absent members Anderson? No. Anderson, no. Berryhill? No. Berryhill, no. Evans? Aye. Evans, aye. Yee? Aye. Yee, aye. It's 9-4.
That's out. We'll go to Fong, 1116.
Item
36.
36. Currently 5-0. Absent members Anderson? No. Anderson, no. Calderon? Aye. Calderon, aye. Canella? Corbett? Aye. Corbett, aye. Evans? Aye. Evans, aye. Padilla? Aye. Padilla, aye. Strickland? Wyland? Wyland, aye. 10-1.
That's out. File item 37, 1167, Fong.
Current vote is 4-2. Absent members Calderon? Aye. Calderon, aye. Canella? Corbett? Aye. Corbett, aye. Evans? Aye. Evans, aye. Padilla? Aye. Padilla, aye. Strickland? Wyland? Wyland, no. It's 8-3.
8-3. That bill is out, and that was our last one. We're adjourned.